we love him in All of Us Strangers, God's Creatures, After Sun, but we actually were craving to see him break out of that kind of tight, intimate space.
Yeah,
not just do sad, emotional A24 movies.
Yeah.
Thank you, Guy, for that email.
To see how Rome would rise to the occasion.
This is about survival. He sounds like he's got a hernia. This is about survival.
Yeah. Okay, man.
The general will do. Because he's almost doing the Russell.
But like some guy at an office in Reading. Hi guys, for the decorations for the Christmas party.
Can we get the sales deck out for next week, please?
That's a great question, George. We're going to move on to slide number 7.
Yeah.
And we're back.
Back after a while.
Back after a while. We have had a bit of a break, haven't we?
Yeah, you had a lovely time in Florida. It looked great.
I did.
And so many please follow at George Pundock on Instagram to see lovely sun-swept photos of sunsets and pools and cocktails and Hawaiian shirts.
Yeah.
Very jealous.
I've never been away to somewhere warm in November. I've never had winter sun before.
Oh, okay.
And let me tell you, it's great.
It is. If you could make it happen with work, life, obviously like school being a thing, it is a really good. It sounds really arrogant. I don't know how people make it to the end of the year without like an October or November break.
Yeah, I feel very lucky because we're just spending time with family out there, and Anna's dad was like, I'm really sorry, it's only going to be like 23, 24 degrees today. And I'm like,
that's all right.
And I was like, that's fine. Because when I came here, it was the cold snap as well. And it was like so, it was like 0 degrees.
Yes, you missed a whole whirlwind of weather.
And I was like, I'm fine with that. And literally, it was so funny. You were at the Wicked premiere, literally like, and I saw the rain, and I saw the rain and the cold, and I was simultaneously at that same time on a sun lounger in St. Petersburg, Florida, with my feet up, with a drink in my hand. And I was like, brilliant.
I did Egypt for just 4 days, like the same that the weekend you left, and it was just like there it's like 28 even in November, and my grandma, who's cold wherever she is on planet Earth, so like she's in London now, and she's like, I'm cold, James, but I'll call her up in Egypt in November when it's 28. She'll be like, it's cold, James, it gets cold at night.
Please,
and I was like, this 28 is very fine.
In Florida they were like, oh, we actually might get a frost on Friday, and I'm like, all right. We wake up to frost. We live in frost.
Frost for breakfast.
Frost is a summer weather, frankly, very much. But yes, it was terrific.
We are now back. 2 nights ago, we had the first of our 2 Christmas pub quizzes, and it was great. What an eventful evening. I cannot wait to do it all over again next week.
So much fun. And thank you to everyone who came. And if you didn't come, not a problem. Check out our Instagram for the sort of highlights.
The ending was nuts. When I say we literally were on our last question that we had written.
Yes.
So if you don't know, we had 2 sudden death rounds. We had a sudden death for second and third, and a sudden death for first and second, or third and fourth and first, second. And it was chaos because the 2 people on stage, it was a first to shout out the answer wins, said 2 answers at exactly the same time.
Same answer.
The same answer.
And then you said, go again.
And then we said the same answer again. So it was just chaos, mayhem. We then had to pause, and it was like, okay, we can't decide this here. We're going to do another question, which was genuinely our last question that we had written. It would have been a sad case of like film trivia questions, just quickly solving it. But amazing fun. So great to see so many of our Patreon members and our Discord members there. I don't know, I'm probably going to forget someone, but Harry, Emily,
yes, absolutely.
Johanna,
James, Molly, Johanna, Dylan,
seeing you
Erin,
guys there,
all you guys
was just amazing.
Shirka, who had come over from Ireland, and she said, "Where's Bevan?"
Yeah, I think.
Fantastic. By the way, before we move on, I would like to, as I do every time I fly, we play the round.
What are people watching?
So it's on average 8-9 hour flight.
Yeah.
And so James, a whole suite of selection of films on a plane. By the way, every time I travel, do long haul, I'm like, I remember how little choice we used to have when we used to fly, and I don't care what films are on there, just that there's choice. I just love that.
Yeah.
So lots of 2024 films available.
Yeah.
I got up several times, did a quick scan, as you expect me to do.
Was it a sort of clear, there's like 1 or 2 films that everyone's watching?
I want you to guess what the top and the second top film was that everyone was watching.
I have 2 in my mind. I'm going to guess Deadpool and Wolverine.
People were watching, not the top.
Inside Out 2.
I think I saw only 2 people in my section watching that, so no.
Okay, so there's one. Is it Bad Boys?
Nope.
Is it Beetlejuice?
No, it wasn't available actually. Anna was very disappointed.
Let me think. It wasn't like a Despicable Me or something.
No. You've seen it.
I've seen it. From is it June?
No. I was actually glad to see not people not watching
that.
Sorry, I can't speak today because it's.
It's from this. It's not like Oppenheimer.
Oh, this is 2024 films. Absolutely, I saw no Barbies, no nothing like that. Put it this way, you should get the first one with a bit of deduction, but I don't think you'll get the second one. So try and do the top spot. The top spot. It's a big film from this year. Financially successful. Was a big movie. We saw it at the cinema on a big screen. Obviously together at a screening.
Joker 2?
No. Way too soon for that to come out. No. A film we felt much more positive about than Joker 2. We liked this film, broadly speaking. It was okay. Enough to get by.
Oh, completely blanking.
The actors in it we particularly liked.
Oh, Challengers.
No. Good shout, but no.
The actors in it, I'm really blanking. Go on, what was it?
So the number 1 movie that I saw people watching on the plane was Twisters.
Oh, okay. Oh, of course.
Glenn Powell.
Perfect plane movie.
Yeah, and it was perfect.
Because people might not have caught it, but you go, I fancy
watching that.
There's something, not to be rude to Twisters, maybe a little bit sleepy about it.
It's mid.
Yes.
It's mid-level, which is like entertaining
low stakes
enough.
Entertainment.
Yeah, entertaining enough to divert you.
Well, the stakes are high in the film, but
it's not
of
cerebral enough to really, you need to concentrate. So that's
Twisters,
now, I was very surprised with the second film.
Yeah.
And it's a film you've seen this year, James.
Yeah.
But you won't remember it.
Okay.
You won't get
it was sort of lost.
Just try guess.
It's a 2024 film that came out this year.
I saw people watching it and I was like, that is way more people watching this film than I ever would have thought.
How interesting. Okay. Did we see this film ahead of time?
I'm not going to give any clues. Yes, we did. We did see this film ahead of time. I'll give you that.
Is it Heretic?
No, too recent.
Too recent.
What I love is that I know you're racking your brain now.
Is it Longlegs?
No. Good shout.
Is it not Talk to Me? No. It's not horror.
No.
Go on. What is it?
It was Fly Me to the Moon.
Oh,
the Channing Tatum, Scarlett Johansson movie.
So plainy.
Yeah.
Oh, that film did really little for me.
I think it did little for everyone.
Yeah.
And I was so surprised. Yes. I think, as far as I'm concerned, I didn't see that film. You did. That film came and went. But I was really surprised at how many people I saw watching that. I will give a contextual factor, which is, of course, this was a flight to Florida where Cape Canaveral is, and NASA and the Space Station. So there might be a thematic relationship to that, but I still think above, that June Part 2 was an option, and Challenges was an option, and Inside Out 2 was an option. I thought way more people would be watching that.
2 very content-y films. Like if I was to talk about Fly Me to the Moon, not to say it's not cinema, but it almost feels like it's made for the carousel selection. It doesn't necessarily challenge or invite much. It's very easy watching. I found it a little bit too. It just bored me, and it didn't. I said I would love a film all about the media frenzy around landing on the moon and the contingency plan about what would have happened if it hadn't made it. I think that's such an interesting idea, but around that, Fly Me to the Moon just gave me nothing really interesting to go with. But I get it, like Scarlett Johansson, Channing Tatum.
Film, in a way, it only exists on planes now. It only exists to be on planes.
It's like at the end of Titanic when she's like, he exists now only in my memory.
Yeah, that film only exists now on planes.
He had no name, no passport.
Yeah. I just briefly tell you what I watched. Yeah. I didn't watch any newer films because we've seen most of them, thankfully, because this job. I watched Field of Dreams, which I've never seen. You've seen that?
Yeah, but yeah.
Wow, that's a really strange film.
Yeah.
I think you should almost watch it as a piece of film history. It feels like an artifact. Yeah. This is 1988, whatever. Kevin Costner plays a college-educated guy who moves to Iowa to live on a farm because that's his American ideal. And while he's farming corn, he hears a voice from a ghost telling him to build a baseball field. So he builds a baseball field, and ghosts appear. The ghost of Shoeless Joe Jackson, played by Ray Liotta, says, if you keep building this, they will come. And more ghosts from the Boston White Sox, no, the Boston Red Sox, the Chicago White Sox turn up. And then he goes on a bit of a road trip to get James Earl Jones, who's an author of a book that at one point there's a town hall meeting that they try and stop the spread of neo-fascism in America. Good luck with that. And then he brings it all back. And it's so weird and magical realist and sincere and a bit saccharine and a bit schmaltzy, but also like
what year to come
quite
out?
Heartfelt, 1988.
Right, okay, yeah.
It's like, I don't know how it got made. I don't know. It would never get made now. It's such a period of its time. But like, I did love it in a way for existing. Yeah. And it did, like, it does kind of land emotionally. Some of it, I was like, oh yeah, there's some beautiful lines in it. It's just a really curious film.
Right.
Really, really strange.
How interesting.
I watched that. And then I watched The Intern with Anne Hathaway and Robert De Niro,
Nice.
which is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Perfectly fine.
Great. I told you this already, but I caught Dark Waters, film I've been meaning to get to for a long
great
time.
movie.
Immediately came home. I'm planning on throwing out all the Teflon.
Yeah.
Teflon's done around here. Okay.
PFOAs, right, James? That's all,
Tell me about it.
PFOAs.
Tell me about it. But great, Mark Ruffalo,
great movie.
he's perfectly cast.
What I love about Dark Waters is that that's a Todd Haynes film.
Yeah.
And like he's done Carol and May December, which are very like melodramatic films. But Dark Waters is so stripped and precise.
It's all about the information in the story and its service to it. There's nothing sort of overly lit or romantic about it. It's very matter of fact. It also does that thing where it has like Breaking Bad, it has a slightly putrid, sickly green tinge to it that just makes you feel
like it's the Matrix.
Gross.
Or
like
something.
I have all of these chemicals inside me, just rotting me from the inside.
I remember when they were promoting that film, which was just before COVID. The real life Mark Bellot, I think his name is, the lawyer, was in the audience of Graham Norton when Mark Ruffalo went on Graham Norton, and they said, "Oh yeah, and the real lawyer's here," and then like they cut to him, and he was like, "Yeah," and he said, "Yeah, these chemicals are actually all inside us right now. They're forever chemicals. They can never be destroyed, and like it's in every single one of us in this room." And there was just like this giant silence in the studio, and Graham Norton was like, "If we were in America now, we'd go to a commercial break." Okay.
That is great.
But James, last thing before we move on, I have something very exciting to talk to you about Nosferatu. So last night we were invited to a secret Nosferatu banquet in the crypt of Somerset House.
And can I just say, I really appreciated the email invitation. So it was like, you get a lot of email invitations, but this one was written as it would have been by the Count Dracula himself. Like, the Count awaits your thing to dine, and in Gothic thing. And it's like, it signs off with like, the Count awaits your response, brackets, and any allergies and dietary requirements, which I just think is such a funny, like, we do have to include that, but it has to be there. Like, I never imagined the Dracula being like, come for dinner. You must be the gluten-free vegan who is here.
Anyway, sadly James couldn't make it, so I went on my Todd, which is when you go on your own to these things, you sometimes have to like put a bit of extra effort in to make sure you speak to people, because I didn't know anyone there. Except for one person I randomly went to uni with, but I turn up at the door and they're like, okay, the password is succumb to the darkness, and there's these actors in the Gothic thing, and like, so I walked up and I was like, hello, succumb to the darkness, please. And they're like, open up, and I descend into this crypt underneath Somerset House, which I never knew was there. Fantastic. And they've got sort of red uplighters, and they're playing the sort of trailer music, which is horrible, and they give you a drink, and would you like a blood orange margarita? And they had like this lemonade that looked like Coca-Cola, but I would say was all lemon and no sugar, so it sort of stripped the enamel off my teeth. Yeah. And then we had this long banquet table with 3-course meal, and it was sort of lace doiling. It was wonderful. Oh, James. Oh, this is great. The food was fantastic. I have to say, thank you, Charlie Communications, for the invitation. The food was a burrata to start, which was wonderful. Yeah. A fantastic piece of beef fillet for main. And
rare, I hope.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And but beautifully cooked. With, by the way, white apron service all around us, white cotton gloves. They would walk around with chalices and decanters of red wine, and then dessert was a plum sorbet. But James, because there was an empty space next to me for you, they kept putting your plate
did you
down.
get double food?
I got double food.
Oh, I'm so happy for you.
I was so popular on my table because I had 2 burratas. I then had like 3 slices of fillet steak, and I was like, "Does anyone want some fillet? Does anyone want some fillet?"
Oh, congrats!
I was great, and they just kept. And every time the waiter came back, I was like, "I don't know what happened to that plate. Someone ate it, but it's all gone. I think there's a dog in here." Anyway,
amazing.
So we just sat there having a great time and just sort of speaking to other content creators there. I actually think I was probably the most filmy person there. Get people from fashion, from design, and I didn't recognize anyone else. And then we're literally like eating our food. We've just finished the starter, and then I didn't realize that there was a gong, right? And we hear this and in a crypt, it just echoes. We all like jump off our seats and we look, and it's Willem Dafoe holding the gong, stood next to Bill Skarsgård and Nicholas Hoult and Lily Rose Depp, and they're like, and they have, by the way, great energy.
Yeah.
They were like, "Hey guys, how's it going? Have you finished eating? We just want to come and say hi."
How many people were there? How many guests?
I would say there were 20 of us.
Oh god,
it was
exclusive.
It was
event.
exclusive. Yeah,
that's really cool.
And we were like, "Oh my god!" People were immediately like getting their phones out, and I was quite lucky because I was sat quite close to them, so I kind of did a little subtle video, but then just wanted to look at them.
Yeah.
And then it was like, yeah, how you doing? Great energy. And then it was like, well, let's all get a photo. And then you have this slightly awkward bit where like 20 influencers come up and like come around this corner to a room not bigger than the one we're in now.
Yeah.
And you have this step and repeat, but there is no real system. So the PRs are like, okay, let's have 10 people go in and then we'll get pictures. And I'm thinking, okay, never be the first pancake. Never go in first. So I let 10 people go in and they sort of struggle with the setup and they get a photo. And then afterwards they're like, okay, no, let's do 5 people next. I'm like, here's my opportunity. And I give my phone to someone I hadn't even spoken to yet. I was just like, please take a video of me.
Yeah.
And they did. And I just made a beeline for Bill Skarsgård because he is my height.
Yeah.
So I went and just stood right next to him. I said, "Hi, Bill. I'm gonna just stand next to you because you're a tall guy." He said, "Yes, absolutely. What's your name?" I said, "I'm George. Nice to meet you." He said, "Nice to meet you too." He said, "How tall are you?" I said, "I'm 6'4". And he said, "Oh wow." And I said, "But tell you what, Bill." I said, "When they take the photo, I'll crouch down a little bit to make you look taller." And he went, "Yeah, thank you very much." And he said, "Nicholas is tall as well." Then Nicholas Hoult turned around. He was like, "Hi, I'm Nicholas." I said, "Yeah, hi, Nick. How you doing? I'm George.
Brilliant.
Really nice to meet you. I'm going to stand next to you guys because you guys are tall." And he was like, "That's great." And then we sort of bunched in for the photo. Then Willem Dafoe just sort of comes in front of me.
Hi, how are you doing?
He goes, "I'm going to go here." And I said, "All right, Willem, you go in front of us." And he was like, "Yeah, I'm going to just do it here."
I'm going to put the
That's all
photos
right.
on screen for people watching the video.
And we just had this nice little chat. And then the photo stopped. But I was just stood with the 3 of them. And I said, "Do you mind if I try and get a, I said, can we get a photo?" And they were like, "Yeah, absolutely." Now, the only downside was that the way it was lit, that as soon as you hold a phone up, it casts a shadow on your face. Not unlike the Nosferatu poster, but when you're trying to get a photo with 3 major actors, Lily Rose Depp is a major actor, but she wasn't in this conversation.
Yeah.
I'm not just like discrediting her. So I have all these sort of harried and hurried photos of me trying to get something, and then Willem Dafoe just took the camera out of my hand. He was like, "Let me do it. Go on." And then his hand was covering the thing, and Nicholas Hoult was like, "Just do a video, Willem. Just do a video." And then I've got about a 6-second video on my phone, being like, all trying to get in, and then I just said, "Thanks so much, guys," and I just left, and I left them to the other influencers, and I was like, wow. And I was really sorry you weren't there, James.
I know. I really
wanted
to be there. I really wanted to be there.
I felt so, because I was like, oh, I can't wait to tell James this, but I feel bad that you weren't there. And but it was a really nice interaction. You know, like, it's funny because, you know, when I talked about that Billy Bob Thornton thing a couple of weeks ago, like that was a nice interaction.
Yeah.
Very brief. This is like the same as that, but more time with more actors. But it was natural. It didn't feel uncomfortable. They were really up for it.
Willem sounds exactly like I imagine he is.
He was so much fun. He was having a great time. Nicholas Hoult was a class act, and Bill Skarsgård was really wonderful as well. And what I love about the Nosferatu marketing is they haven't revealed what Nosferatu looks like.
I really like that too.
I really
only
appreciate
seen
it.
his silhouette.
Yeah.
It's the film that I am probably have been the most excited for this year.
Yeah.
In terms of, like, it's not that, I said saying this on Double Take, it's not like a film that's so big and in your face like a Deadpool and Wolverine is, or a Dune is. It's like, it's got really great ingredients and talent behind it that hopefully will make for a film I'll really like. It's still TBC. But
Annoyingly, it's actually out on, not annoyingly, I mean soon, but it's actually out on the 1st of January 2025. So I wonder actually, James, that we technically, whatever we think about the film, can't talk about it in our end of year roundup because it, calendar-wise,
for
comes
other
out.
people, that is an interesting
That's
thing
the rule we've always
to
gone with
say.
before.
Yeah, release, because it's for everyone listening who gets to see it. But we
Yeah.
should hopefully be talking about, reviewing it next week for you.
Yes,
But obviously,
hopefully.
as
So
always,
watch this
we'll know
space. So
when we know.
getting it a few weeks ahead of time, which is fantastic. So a very fun evening.
So cool.
And
Also, we're just so lucky that we get to do that.
completely lucky.
And like, you didn't even see the film.
No, we didn't
it
even
was
see the
just
film.
a
It was just an
pure
event.
fun marketing thing. And I think the idea of just hosting a banquet, a Dracula's banquet, is genius. Like in the Bram Stoker's Dracula, which I know is different, but when Keanu Reeves has dinner alone in Dracula's like dining room, it's horrifying. It's so gothic and really well done. It's laced with horrific acting.
Also, not
But it's
to
a great
just
scene.
toot my own horn here, but first of all, a lot of people there didn't know who those actors were or didn't know them by name. I was also the only one who had an interaction and conversation with them because
Yeah, they're just there for the photo.
Yeah, they're
You
just there for the
like
photo.
and appreciate these people's
I was
work.
just like, I could easily be like, yeah, you're Bill Skarsgård, you're in Barbarian and It and all this stuff. And Nicholas Hoult, of course, About a Boy, and you're in Jury Number 2 last month.
Bill Skarsgård is the scare queen of the moment. Yeah. He is the guy you cast.
How about The Crow?
The Crow. No one saw it. Isn't that weird? We got away with just not covering that this year as well.
I think no one saw it. I think it's one of yeah. Anyway, so great experience. We'll talk about it next week, hopefully. But this week, at long last, we get back to this. This week, we'll be talking about Wicked, of course, the big movie of the moment. Sorry, our review is a little bit late, but we've been away. But James has seen it. I haven't had an opportunity to because I've only been back a few days. But James is going to give us his thoughts.
You can check out my sort of mini solo thing when George was away from last week, where I talked about the madness that was the Wicked premiere. And it's going to put a lot of my thoughts in context for how I experienced that film and how I think people who maybe aren't diehard Wicked fans experience it. So if you haven't checked that out, go and check that out. But of course, update people on how I saw the film. Also, I know we're a bit late, but such is, I'm sure people who already love Wicked have gone to see it. So we're hoping to have more of a catch-up discussion on that film.
James will also be reviewing the Robbie Williams chimpanzee biopic movie Better Man.
Rocket Man, Planet of the Apes, man.
There we go.
There we go.
We also have a ton of correspondence about Gladiator 2 that we'll finally read through. And also, just a note to say that there are lots of films came out in November, and we did sort of like quite a few reviews ahead of time at the beginning of the month. So if you need to catch up with Blitz or The Piano Lesson or Conclave, where we reposted last week, you can do that. We have some reviews from before, so just go and check that out.
As always, guys, Double Take, we just recorded. Always good fun on our Patreon. If you wanted to support us and throw us a bone, we do a weekly news show every single week where we talk about the film news, what's going on, who's being cast. This week we talked about Barry Keoghan being cast as Ringo in the new Sam Mendes Beatles 4-part epic thing that's upcoming.
Talked about Wicked just dominating the box office, just really breaking records.
More that
Snow White trailer.
More Snow White trailer dropped, which will be Snow White. So make sure, if you want to hear some more stuff from us, it's a completely different show, which is really good fun. Go and check that out.
But let's get on now with some film reviews. So Robbie Williams, who I'm aware is an entity outside of the UK, is not as cherished as he is within the UK, but go to any pub, stag do, hen night,
late night bus,
wedding, you will hear Robbie Williams being championed. And James, he has this film out. Explain Better Man.
Yeah, it's a biopic about Robbie Williams' life that doesn't have Robbie Williams' name in the title. It doesn't actually feature Robbie Williams' face. And the reason this stands out as a biopic is that Robbie Williams is not being portrayed by another actor per se visually. He is a chimpanzee, full apes tech, has just been lifted straight into this thing. And it's interesting to have this biopic. We're about to have A Complete Unknown, which is the Bob Dylan one with Timothée Chalamet. Earlier this year, we had Back to Black. You said quite a few times, and I back you on this, it's your least favourite genre of film, the musical biopic. And it's really interesting to get this...
Sorry, just on that point there, I also spoke to someone who knew somebody who had been working on the Michael Jackson biopic, which has been pushed back 6 months. They said it's a mess behind the scenes. Production, we're dealing with the estate, with all the politics, just a mess.
I can totally imagine that. Like that. For anyone who doesn't know, there is like a Michael Jackson biopic that's been like knocking around for a while, and it's from what I understand, it's been commissioned by the estate, which makes it obviously portraying that story accurately, how a lot of people might be wanting to talk about Michael Jackson very differently. Anyway, this is Better Man, directed by Michael Gracie, who's done The Greatest Showman, which a lot of people really, really loved. I thought it was like
never saw it actually.
Yeah, it's a bit of an enigma, but it's
made a huge amount of money.
Amount of money. It's like an incredibly rewatchable film. This is very much Rocket Man meets Planet of the Apes, which when you say out loud, you're like, I'm sorry, what? You've got John O'Davis playing Robbie Williams, who is, I imagine, in a full mocap suit, but we also have the voiceover of the voice of actual Robbie Williams. So the integration between the performance that we see on screen and the voice behind it, and the voice that's also being provided by John O'Davis, is very seamlessly integrated. And you might be thinking, as soon as this film opens and you see this boy in Stoke who is a chimpanzee, you might think for a second, oh, he's a chimpanzee. But weirdly, you think that once, and it totally just disappears, and you never think about it again until it becomes a relevant framing device for this film. Robbie is a story of Robbie Williams, who has a working class background in Stoke. He is a born performer. It's this whole thing of like, you either have it or you don't. And he has a father who is also slightly neglectful, but also has this insatiable addiction to showbiz and fame and performing, and that's played by Steve Pemberton. And Robbie realizes very early on, when he fluffs up a performance in his school play, that if you just style yourself out with enough confidence, talent is irrelevant, but if you have enough confidence, that is all that matters. And it's a really interesting thing about sort of the chimpanzee framing of like being more different and more confident and more outlandish and more crazy than everyone else around you. The songs in this, so it is a musical biopic, so we do have musical numbers fit with the songs of Robbie Williams, and it is shot in a very eclectic and interesting style. There's lots of movement. There's a rock DJ song, which is all made to look like one long shot, taking you through Regent Street, and it's done really well. A lot of moving through time, and the songs are less trying to narrativize a conversation between two people, like The Winner Takes It All in Mamma Mia. You know, that's like sort of jerry-rigged into like a moment in conflict. Instead, the songs, mostly in this, are used to progress time. They're used to indicate a montage or to show and demonstrate success or sadness or failure. So they're less tied to, we're going to shoehorn this song into a thing, versus let's progress time, let's show you a montage, let's move it through. So in that way, I think it does that quite well. Particular Rock DJ was brilliant, and She's the One also, I thought, just feast for the eyes, fantastic. It was interesting to see Back to Black, earlier this year, where I felt like maybe that film was too afraid to criticize the character of Amy Winehouse at the expense of celebrating her life. And I think my review of Back to Black was mostly, I think you said the same, is that it doesn't really serve an audience that much because it felt like it was not really getting to the core of that story. Although, you know, very well played by the talent involved, it just didn't quite really feel like a definitive version of that story. Whereas this is quite critical of Robbie being very fame hungry with narcissistic traits. He is often very selfish. He's a bad boyfriend. He is a thoughtless son. He's a bad friend. And it does, you know, with drugs and rock and roll and all of that, frame him as someone who is very flawed and isn't afraid to show him at his worst. The thing that's interesting about this framing with the chimpanzee is that, and it sounds quite sad to say, when we've seen films like Rocket Man and Bohemian Rhapsody, yes, these are real stories that happen to real people, but the tropes of this like shot to fame story are unfortunately very familiar, if I'm thinking very cynically from an audience perspective. Clutches of fame taken far too young, with problems that are unaddressed. Introduction of wealth and fame and drugs and alcohol probably has a close brush with death that reframes something, allows them to re-understand the music. These, unfortunately, are quite familiar things.
Have you seen Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story?
No.
Which is, so basically in 2007, they made us, because after Ray and Walk the Line, Judd Apatow made a movie, I think it's Judd Apatow, made a movie with John C. Reilly, which was a spoof of musical biopics.
Right,
But what's funny is that film has become more and more accurate the more the genre has continued.
Yes.
So they parodied all of that. And when Bohemian Rhapsody came out, people were like, this is just Walk Hard all the way through. Anyway.
And it sounds quite sad for me to say, yes, these are real stories, but like it's very familiar territory. When you have your main... The device framing of him as a chimp just works. And it works in the sense that everything that they now want to do to elevate the source material or elevate the story is done so through the frame of Robbie being someone who is different. Because the rest of the time it's not acknowledged, it's seamless. And actually the CGI looks fantastic. There was never a moment where I thought, this looks weird that this chimp is there. They literally copied the apes tech, Control-Alt-Save-As.Robbie Williams, and just put it into here, and it works really well. And I was saying this a little bit on Double Take, like that idea of losing Robbie Williams' face from the film and not having the casting of an actor take away from the film allows that performance in the film to be totally liberated from all of the distractions we often have from other biopics. And so for this, I will be honest, I was surprised, especially towards the end, how well it did sort of come together. It does a lot of familiar story beats that I've just told you and things that you would expect from Robbie Williams' story based on what we've already know. But at the end, with a final moment, it comes together really nicely. And I think audiences are going to really enjoy it.
Great.
And it's one of the better it is better than most of the other musical biopics I've seen. I think you will enjoy it more than probably any other musical biopic. I don't think it is like the saving grace of the genre in any way. But of them, I think that works really well. The musical numbers are done really well. And the performance is really good from John O'Davis. The CGI integration of the monkey works, and I think just plants its feet in something that liberates itself from the rest of the film.
Could be a genius move, yeah.
Could be a genius move. I think maybe there's some definite omissions from some great Take That music, which I imagine is a licensing issue.
Take That monkeys as well.
No, just Robbie. And so like they're definitely missing a lot of Take That stuff. And I think the Take That story is a bit underexplored. Like it doesn't cover Take That's rise to fame as much as it does Robbie's inner understanding. I think a lot of people will be pleasantly surprised by it. I think maybe there's a sort of plot point with the dad that you might feel becomes a little shoehorned, but the overall message and reframe, it's definitely Robbie therapizing and reframing his life works very well. It's surprisingly effective, and I think people will enjoy it.
Excellent. Well, that is Better Man. That is out, I believe, on Boxing Day here in the UK.
Boxing Day, yeah.
Again, I'd be interested to see how wide this gets released outside of the UK.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it myself yet. Looking forward to. I guess I would
but him not also being the star and it not being called Robbie Williams something allows the people who don't know Robbie Williams to almost be quietly free of that. Which
really
is why
smart.
I think specifically for Robbie Williams, it's quite a smart move.
So, what's your favourite Robbie Williams song?
Oh, I like Let Me Entertain You.
It's a classic.
I like Feel.
No documentary about like New Labour in the 90s is complete without Let Me Entertain
Let
You.
Me Entertain You.
Like Tony Blair came to power.
New Labour.
Feels
and
great.
also Oasis coming in on the thing. There's a great Oasis cameo in this as well for people to enjoy. Feels great. The rock DJ sequence is really good.
I think that's probably the one I listen to the most. That's just such a fun
So that's like
track.
used as a progression of time to be like, so it's Take That all performing it, but it's a sweeping shot through Regent Street, like capturing the mania of fame. And it's just really impressive and really well done.
I underrated Robbie's song is Sexed Up. You know Sexed Up?
Oh, but off the top of my head, but I'm sure I know.
Oh yeah, check it out. It's good.
I like Kids. So come on.
He's got
loads of hits. You'll be reminded.
If you're a non-UK based person listening to this and you don't know Robbie Williams, get on your music streamer right now and just go for a Robbie binge.
It didn't overstay its welcome. It got to the end and I was like, oh, that's hit. That has worked. I couldn't get to the end and say it didn't work. And then the integration of Robbie doing a VO throughout the whole thing is really weird because it all just seamlessly works together. And I praise John O'Davis, who's playing the role physically of making that all work. I was ready to probably rip it apart a little bit, but actually it's fairly okay.
Fantastic. That's Better Man. That's out on Boxing Day. Let us know your thoughts when you see it.
So, George, now we are coming to Wicked. Where do you even begin with Wicked?
Probably The Wizard of Oz.
Well, yes, there will be. It will be The Wizard of Oz, literally where it all began. Mainstay of the West End. I assume everybody already knows what a Wicked is. This is Wicked Part 1, which it's so desperate to hide to you, it's Part 1, until the opening title sequence happens and it goes, Wicked, whoosh, Part 1. And then you're like, oh, what? If you didn't know. And we even had moments we were like, you had originally said they're doing 2 parts.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, I don't think so. And then it was just Wicked. And then we were like, no, it's all the whole film. But it was never, it hid for a long time.
It did a June.
Yes. It really didn't want you to know that it was part 1
at first. And then at the end of June, it was like, Part 1.
Been a very, I assume, a very successful theatre production for a very long time, long running. Directed by John M. Chu, who's done Crazy Rich Asians, which I've only heard great things about.
Oh yeah, that's pretty good.
He's also done In the Heights, which is
didn't see that, but that was also really good.
Lin-Manuel Miranda. Now You See Me Too. This is Wicked Part 1, and it's first of 2 parts of the adaptation of the musical by Schwartz and Holzman, set in L. Frank Baum's 1900 novel.
Yeah.
The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, famous film from 1939, just in case.
I will be rewatching this Christmas and look forward to reporting back about how that works.
Yeah. Does it work?
Does it
I played it and it has motions. The film follows Elphaba as she embarks on her path to becoming the Wicked Witch of the West and chronicles her friendship with classmate Galinda. We open in Oz. Galinda has... she's speaking to the citizens of Munchkinland who are celebrating the death of the Wicked Witch of the West. Galinda tells them the story of a witch born from an affair and being rejected because of her green skin. And the citizens ask her, were you ever friends with Galinda? Were you ever friends, Galinda? And she replies, yes. And then we cut back to a moment in time where they meet. The two of them meet at Shiz University, which is a magical university. Shiz, S-I-H-I-Z. Shiz University, where Galinda is desperate to become a sorceress, but the head teacher only takes one person to her sorcery class or something. But it becomes very clear that Elphaba, who's also attending Shiz University, has got profound magical powers and is able to make people levitate. The classic, I don't realize my power, and everything levitates when she gets a little bit upset. We have Peter Dinklage, who's playing Dr. Dillamond, who is a talking goat who teaches Ozian history, who faces discrimination from the school. It says on his chalkboard when he walks in, animals go home. Animals are at a threat of losing their civil rights and their ability to speak, and some of them are even going missing. Did you know anything about the plot?
No.
Yeah, this is all news to you.
Absolutely.
Peter Dinklage plays a goat.
Don't know anything about Wicked other than that it's related to the Wizard of Oz, about the Wicked Witch of the West, and I know 2 songs from it. That's it.
That's basically what I knew. So the animals are at risk of losing their voice and they're being cast out.
Okay. Well, we're talking animals a big thing in the Wizard of Oz. I remember the monkeys and obviously the lion.
Well, you know what? It would be interesting if they weren't, because that's part of. It's like I think the idea is that in our world we let discrimination happen and we enslaved animals and put them in zoos and they lost their voice. And if we were only more connected to our magic, I think is that I've not seen part 2. Something going missing. Elphaba is given the opportunity to meet Oz, the wizard, in Emerald City, which is a scene that's very green. A city that's very green. And she goes to meet Oz, who's played by Jeff Goldblum. And at the very last minute, Galinda jumps on the train and comes with her because they become friends. That's all you need to know about Wicked. It's a musical with grand, sweeping set pieces. It stars Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba, or Ariana Grande as Galinda. You've got Jonathan Bailey. I should just say that I did mention this last week. So I went to the Wicked premiere, which I think now is the largest crowd I've ever watched a film in. It's bigger than any ticketed event we would go to. It was at the Raw Festival Hall in the venue where I think they host the BAFTAs. So it's not the biggest screen, but the auditorium itself is massive. And I was with loads of screaming, absolutely just tremendously excited Wicked fans, and we had the cast come on and talk. And when they came out, as always, there's claps, but this was like crowds screaming, and I was just like a deer in headlights there by myself eating popcorn, like, oh my god, this is really real.
Does she play Wicked? Is she Miss Wicked?
She Miss Wicked. And so the film starts, and like you would if you were to watch a live performance of Wicked, at the end of every song, people are clapping and people are cheering. And I even forgot, because there's a first monologue song with Cynthia Erivo where it was so good, and I ended up clapping because I kind of forgot. And when other people clap, you just clap with them. The only thing I liken it to is when I went to go and see The Force Awakens on the 14th of December at midnight. And I remember the excitement when people did certain things and characters were revealed. And that's the only thing I can compare it to. Is everyone watching Wicked this weekend or the week before going to have that same experience? Most likely not, but I've heard that like the energy in the cinema is really excited. That meant that as someone who doesn't have a connection to Wicked, and I'm probably a little bit there are select few musical films that I think I really like. I don't have a problem with the genre, but it's not for me. I saw it in the perfect environment, and when I tell you I got completely emotionally swept up in this film, and as the credits rolled, I was just totally beaming. I really was, and I really felt like I saw it in the perfect environment. I think Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande are both brilliant. They clearly love the film, love the roles they're playing. Cynthia Erivo is just fantastic at carrying both strength and frailty in her performance in everything that she says. I don't know the original versions of those songs well, but it felt like it was definitely Cynthia Erivo's version, but also definitive and classic. It just balanced that tone where I was like, yes, that definitely is very familiar for Defying Gravity, but you've also made it your own. She's not copying Idina Menzel's thing and playing it too safe. Like, you know how we're in the Les Mis film, Anne Hathaway did like a very spoken, breathy version of I Dreamed a Dream, which is very different to the big projected version of it. This, less so like that, is it's her version, but still matches the energy on screen. The whole Defying Gravity sequence of which this film ends is drawn out like a long action sequence, and the whole set piece is just brilliant and big and bold. Wow. And when it ends, it's not really a spoiler to say it ends at Defying Gravity, but when that moment finished and she soars off right into the sunrise, defying gravity, the screaming as the credits rolled was like, and I saw it in the perfect environment, and I had a brilliant time. The film is about 2 hours and 40 minutes long.
Right.
I think for part one of a story, that's a little bit long and drawn out, personally. But you know what? So is The Hobbit. Yeah. And so are the extended editions of things that I love. I think if you love Wicked, I'm sure you've already seen it, you have had the best time, and I'm so happy for you that this really long definitive version exists, because you're going to have a great time. I worry about young kids going to see it and holding their attention for 2 hours and 40 minutes, because I had a couple of songs where I was like, okay, I'm done here. But I don't love it.
Yeah, that's true.
So somebody else might go, yeah, but this isn't for you. And there's other things that...
You liked June, which was also 2 hours 40 part one.
Really long and drawn out and detailed, and that's the detail we really appreciate. Yeah. So I totally think it is a massive thumbs up. I worry about it being a little bit too long, even though I had a great time. Am I lying awake thinking about Wicked Part 2? No. When it comes out, will I see it? I guess. But I'm not... I'm not thrilled. I think the film overall is incredibly successful. A lot of people are talking about the cinematography, the production style, the lighting, and whether or not that's something that is palatable or nice. I will say that it is, when you watch the film, you realize we're in the land of Oz. It is a maximalist everything production. It is magic, it is broomsticks, it is pink skies and castles and gorgeous walls and foliage. And it's not CG heavy, but it does use a lot of CG, and it does have a lot of practical sets, kind of in a way that I think a lot of Star Wars stuff is done now. It's like, yes, there's loads of computer-generated imagery, but they did build quite a lot of it. I'm not holding it against like the fine art pieces on an A24 film, being like, well, of course the lighting, it's not this. I think it serves the energy and the color and the setting that story needs. I don't personally have a problem with it looking a little bit too high key or a little bit too bubblegum pink. I think that's probably what Oz is in the mind. If you were to take that stage adaptation and make it into film, that's probably what you would want to do with it if you give it the budget. So I don't really... I've seen some clips basically people criticizing lighting, too, and I'm like, ish. We could. It's kind of like Disney.
Fantasyland.
It's like the same way if you looked at the Beauty and the Beast with Emma Watson. Sure. It's like there's a lot of CG there, but also I'm sure they were in some places that were beautifully designed. So yes and no.
A couple of emails on Wicked. First from friend of the show, Alice Bandakravi.
Oh yeah, who I saw at the premiere and said hi to, and yes.
Fantastic. Alice writes in and says, Dear George and James, I am writing to you still on a high after seeing Wicked. I don't love musicals, but I can safely say that I loved this one. The message about the impact of discrimination and bullying was very effective, and it was a pleasure to feel the joy of the production. It's infectious, the colours, the set, the costumes. I thought it was so beautifully made. I loved the nods to old Hollywood, including the fonts and the styling, and I loved the way at times it felt like a superhero movie. Totally. The energy and the dynamism. But really, the main thing for me were the performances, and in particular, Cynthia Erivo's. Her voice is incredible, and her acting, both light touch and incredibly moving. She really must be one of the best in the business. We should say Cynthia Erivo played Elphaba on stage, I believe, for many years.
She's got her credits as well.
Her face conveys so much emotion, but you never feel she's overacting, which is sometimes what makes me so cringe in musicals. I think she deserves an Oscar for this. I've seen a lot of Oscar buzz for this. We'll talk about this, I think, probably on a double take about the early Oscar contenders and stuff.
Yeah, we should do.
At a massive arm's distance judging, I'm just going to say I wonder if it's going to be a Wicked versus June Part 2. Juggernaut head off. Instead of the tiny little indie pieces, you get two massive films.
Yeah, I can see that.
Anyway, she deserves an Oscar for this. Also, for me, this was some of the most naturalistic crying I've ever seen. Wicked Part 1 has made me want to understand more about the original text of The Wizard of Oz, and crucially, the subtext. The subplot about... and this musical has made me want to find out more about a very old story. I cannot wait for Wicked Part 2, and I never thought I would say that. It was so lovely bumping into you, James. George, you were missed. I'm confident you will also love the film. Sirens abound. I like that. Sirens abound, Alice B.
Comparing it to a superhero movie in certain moments is totally bang on. I really think they have looked at those fist bump moments from the great superhero films of the last 15 years and gone, well, how can we match that big screen experience in the big crowd? Because there's a moment where it's almost like Superman taking flight, or it's like someone getting their powers and overcoming adversity to reach something. And it's compelling.
When you described it, I thought it is actually refreshing that this film can deliver that for that audience, which is not the same audience as who get the superhero films and stuff. A bit of crossover, but like it's nice that those event cinema moments can happen. Another Wicked email from Caitlin, who writes in and says, "Hi James, just heard your update on the Wicked premiere. Those events do sound crazy. I'm looking forward to hearing a full review, but just had to take a moment to thank you for immediately understanding. Comparing the excitement to The Force Awakens or the length and the story divide to The Hobbit, you get it. I don't really remember as much confusion or disappointment that Dune was split into two parts, and many people are happy to watch most of the MCUs without knowing some of the background lore. Wicked is that for theatre kids. I haven't stopped thinking about it for days, and I've already planned a second trip to the cinema. It's such a true adaptation that was clearly made with such care. I have no notes."
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Caitlin, theatre kid from Sydney.
It totally does its job for the crowd it wants to do. It reaches all of the highs it needed to.
Yeah.
I think when you get there, you're going to go, yes, I'm full, thank you, personally. I'm stuffed to the brim. I need a year before I go to my main course of dessert of part 2. But that's just me.
Like me having 2 courses last night.
Like you having two courses last night.
Thank you so much.
It totally serves, and I think they, as filmmakers, must be so happy that they achieved what they wanted to with it.
Fantastic.
It's there, yeah.
Thank you very much for those emails on Wicked. Please do continue to send them in. If you've seen it and have some thoughts, if you agree or disagree with James, send those in to hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com. I look forward to catching up with Wicked very soon and will return with my thoughts too. But it sounds very
And I should also say it had a very troubled production, was affected by COVID and strikes. So it's come in 2024.
When are we getting part 2? Next year?
I think next year.
Oh, wow.
But, could change.
Maybe I'll be able to make that premiere.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That was Wicked. So, as ever, James, let's read out some emails that we got into the show. And I would say this week, exclusively, these emails will be about Gladiator 2, which James and I went to the premiere of, and we did a first ever remote review a couple of weeks ago. And it's given you guys the opportunity to go now and catch up and see the film yourselves. And therefore, we have a lot of correspondence on it. So let's get into it. Harry writes in and says, "Hello, James and George, George and James, and every other combination of those letters."
Thank you.
I'm writing to you having just got back from seeing Gladiator 2, or Gladiator as the title screen suggests. And I have to say, I was thoroughly whelmed by the whole experience. I do have to admit that I was sucked in somewhat by the brilliant teaser trailer.
If you're whelmed, because we usually talk about being over or underwhelmed.
Yeah,
so
whelmed is not a
whelmed,
phrase, but yeah, it's just like I was whelmed. Not overwhelmed, not underwhelmed. I was whelmed. I have to admit that I was sucked in by the brilliant teaser trailer that used the Kanye song. And from my own policy of watching the teaser trailer and avoiding all subsequent trailers, to avoid all spoilers, I was very excited for the film. Having listened to your review for the film last week, however, I had significantly lowered my expectations for my screening. But I have to say, my friend and I left the film pleasantly surprised by the quality of the film. Okay. I wholeheartedly agree that the reason Gladiator works so well is because of the personal tragedy of Maximus. And Gladiator 2 does lack both the quality and the subtlety of this personal touch. That being said, I don't think you can ignore the skill needed to pull off the sheer scale of the set pieces in the sequel. Barring the scene you discussed near in the beginning with the CGI monkeys, ? Yeah, because the design of the monkeys is so bizarre.
I've heard someone say they're meant to be dogs bred with monkeys, like the Roman Empire bred crazy
That's
things.
what I thought looking at it, but this isn't a science fiction
doesn't
movie.
mean it looks good.
Also, why it's so distracting.
It was the first fight. It was the first, apart from the invasion in the beginning. It was the first, we've taken our character and put them in a fight. And I was so disappointed to know that that's where they went with it.
But saying because I was looking at it thinking, what creature is this? But that's so distracting. I don't care if it was true. I don't think you can breed monkeys and dogs, by the way. But it's just I'm not a scientist.
I don't think you can put sharks in the Colosseum either.
Yeah. But I'm just that's so distracting. Anyway, but I'm a CGI monkeys. It is nice to see Ridley Scott fighting the good fight for location filming and trying to use practical effects and real extras. I mean, yeah, but also a huge amount of CGI ships and CGI sharks and CGI water and real extras while making films. Yeah, I mean, the Colosseum was full of CGI stuff as well. So
it's like same when we saw Napoleon. You and me were like, look at all the real ships they shot in. That looks brilliant. And look at how they did the Battle of Waterloo and the snow we won. It all looked brilliant, and they had 1,000 horses there that day. But at the end of the day, the ingredients of the story didn't do enough to keep us interested.
Perhaps in another life, he was a choreographer rather than a director. But what do you expect from a man who put his own film, Blade Runner, in his Letterboxd top 4? Yeah, that's really funny if you've seen that clip. While the story did leave more to be desired, the set pieces and performances from the whole cast, including a small role by Matt Lucas. Yeah, we didn't talk about that.
Yeah, we didn't.
Matt Lucas perfectly cast in that. Left me feeling I did get my money's worth. As always, love the show and look forward to hearing your thoughts on the inevitable Gladiator 3 in 2048.
Yeah.
All the best, Harry. P.S. Because I did decide to go and see this very last minute, my friend and I were left with a limited choice for seating and had to pick 2 seats right in the front row. So to add to your discussion on the best place to sit in the cinema, you can scratch seats A6 and A7 in Screen 3 at the Greenwich Picture House off that list, as my neck does ache a bit.
Yeah, unfortunately, people don't know if you've not been there before. You think, oh, okay, front row will be close, but it literally will be a warped viewing for you.
Last night at this Nosferatu thing, I met a woman who works at the Curzon Mayfair, and I said, right, the one that has no air conditioning, and I had to watch Kinds of Kindness in. She was like, yeah, it's a real pain. I said, I think part of me's still in the seat, okay? And she said,
just some butt cheek marks.
She said that like a week later, Luca Guadagnino went to see a film with Io Adebri, right?
Oh my God.
And he came out halfway through and complained to her about the lack of air conditioning in the cinema.
It is bad. It's a
terrible.
gorgeous screen. It's really nice. We saw bike riders there.
Yes, yeah.
They need to sort that out.
Winter screenings.
Winter.
Great. Perfect.
Lovely. Great.
Not any other time. James, another...
Josh writes in to hello@popkitchenpodcast.com, subject, I enjoyed Gladiator 2. Dear James and George, Josh here, a big appreciator of the show, and I just came out of the screening of Gladiator 2 with a smile on my face. For a little bit of context, I don't like Gladiator. I struggle taking big, long, epic films very seriously, and I never found it interesting or exciting. For that reason, I didn't have high hopes of having a good time with its sequel. However, I was very pleasantly surprised. I found this film much more entertaining on a surface level, with more arena fight scenes, even if the CGI was ropey, and less subtle political plot intricacies. From my perspective, this made the film far more enjoyable since it appealed to my dislike of knotty, plotty epics and satisfied my desire for action. I enjoyed the contrast in the screen presences of Paul Mescal, Denzel Washington, and Pedro Pascal, and there were even some laughs in there as well. Overall, I had a great time, even if it's probably for the wrong reasons, although I could totally understand all of the criticisms you both made. I almost think it's easier to enjoy the film for those who dislike the first one. Loving the pod and Patreon content, as always, from Josh. Josh, thank you very much.
I have some friends who've also said, like, it's the same film, basically.
Especially the first half.
The same premise, revenge, doing the thing. I've heard some people... Well, I can't talk about, actually. Spoilers. This next email is from Guy, who writes in and says, Hi, James and George and James. Long-time listener, third-time emailer. Been listening to the pod since the early teens episodes. Thanks for sticking with us. Thank you, Guy. My fiancé and I went to see Gladiator on Friday evening as both fans of the first film and, like many, very excited and interested to see the sequel offering. Like your initial review, we both came away flat from the experience. On discussing the film during dinner afterwards, love that. Love a post-film debrief for a dinner.
You catch a 6 o'clock.
And afterwards, we go, what didn't work? Yeah. We both questioned whether Mescal was the correct casting, as we found some of his big dramatic speech moments just didn't land or have any punch, both in isolation and when compared to Crowe in the first film. We are fans of Mescal from Normal People and All of Us Strangers. However, both of these roles are much more intimate, and he's able to work with his emotional skill and to really connect with an audience there. Contrastly, here I'm unsure he is the gravitas to fulfill his larger, more epic role. Would you agree, or do you believe he's instead let down by the script and other directorial decisions instead? As an aside, we are coming to the quiz on the 9th. Having enjoyed the first quiz you held in North London and look forward to meeting you both again. Yours, Guy, sent not from my work email as I previously did. Thank you, Guy. Look forward to seeing you at the quiz. I've been thinking about Paul Mescal in this. For one, I actually don't think he's poorly cast because he actually has like a Roman physique. He's bulky and he's got a kind of a strong physiognomy to his face. It's not delicate.
I could see him doing Shakespeare and that's like classic.
He could play Julius Caesar on stage in a toga. I think Paul Mescal is a great actor, and I do think he's let down actually by the script. I don't think Lucius as a character is very interesting. I mean, we're barely given any time to know him. I think he's fairly one-dimensional. I will say that I was thinking about Paul Mescal's career trajectory, and it's not even been 5 years since Normal People. And the
Your Roman Empire is Paul Mescal's career trajectory.
the levels of different fame and success that he's been able to jump through and graduate into has been amazing. And now, like, he is, we thought he was big after Normal People, and then after Sun, he had like critical credibility.
He's in that top pack of Hot Six, I think.
Yeah, and then now he's massive Hollywood with this, and I don't think his performance is badness, and I think he's a really great actor. But I do think that as an actor, all actors want time to learn and develop. And I actually almost felt a bit sorry for him that he's had some of the biggest roles of his life crammed into 5 years. I mean, what a lovely problem to have. I mean, it's great. We love seeing him on screen. But as an actor, you want time to grow and develop, and jumping very quickly in such a short space of time from small indie films, small indie projects into massive dramatic heft like Gladiator 2. You know what I mean? It's like, I bet in 5 years' time he'll look back and might say, I would have done that performance completely differently because I'm still learning.
If we're purely speculating, which of course we are, his decisions ultimately, so he's in a position where he's very well regarded as a very talented young actor who can do emotional stuff, he can really deliver gravitas and all the things you already said. I reckon he needs to now prove that he is a box office draw.
Totally, yeah.
Like all of the great top stars are, they're not just very talented, they get bums in seats, and that gives you a longevity. So doing Gladiator 2, which from an outside perspective would be deemed as like almost a guaranteed financial success, he would go, great, I'll do that, and then I'm known, I'll be nominated for something else.
Bankable.
And I'll be known as being bankable, and that sets me off. So I see that there.
Yeah.
But then it's like he isn't given many favors. It's the script, but it's like the very structure of the story doesn't, like we said this before, like about context for its villains, context for the relationship between him and his wife, who he loses in the first scene, context for the fight that's about to happen. Who is he fighting? All of that was missing that allows him to do the work that he could do very well.
I mean, and also, a year ago, you and I, after seeing like All of Us Strangers, were like, we love him in All of Us Strangers, God's Creatures, After Sun, but we actually were craving to see him break out of that kind of tight, intimate space.
Yeah,
not just do sad, emotional A24 movies. Thank you, Guy, for that email.
To see how Rome would rise to the occasion.
This is about survival. He sounds like he's got a hernia. This is about survival.
Yeah. Okay, man.
The general will do. Because he's almost doing the Russell.
It's like some guy at an office in Reading. Hi guys, for the decorations for the Christmas party.
Can we get the sales deck out for next week, please?
That's a great question, George. We're going to move on to slide number 7.
Gary, lunch starts in 15, not now. No eating at your
desk.
Just
gets people together at the office. Moving on to Jasmine, who says, hi lads, Jasmine here. Very long time listener. First time emailer. I found you on Instagram a few years ago, and it took me about 6 months to realise that your videos were not just hilarious games, but from a podcast. You think at Pulp Kitchen Podcast wasn't a podcast?
I worry that we've poorly marketed ourselves. That for 6 months we weren't communicated clearly.
I wanted to talk about Gladiator 2. I was absolutely hooked from the intro and the immense battle scene straight away. Lots of action, great battles. Paul Mescal looked fantastic, and it was great seeing Denzel W. acting again.
He is the best thing in it.
He's good. He's given all the interesting work. He's given interesting duality and sort of twists and turns.
And actually a better character arc than Paul Mescal's.
Yeah. Great to see Denzel W. acting again. The CGI may have been a bit ropey on the baboons and sharks, but the boat scene was very cool. And having not seen the first Gladiator or even the trailer, the surprise of who Lucius was had me gripped. Lots of blood and fighting. I would recommend as a solid action film. Was really good.
That's proof that they shouldn't have given it away.
We asked the question: was the reveal that he was Lucius from the first one originally going to be in the trailers? Because the Gladiator 2 puts that out like it's a revelation.
Yeah,
but we knew that going in. Yeah. So interesting if you're not plugged in.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God, he's the kid.
Yeah, I bet that's amazing. And I kind of wish they hadn't told us that.
I wish they didn't know. I still think we would have rolled our eyes slightly.
I still think they should have put it at the beginning and the film, because the film opens with the end of Gladiators.
Yeah.
Like a recap. We then, from that moment, should have followed Lucius being taken away.
Not in a flashback.
Yeah, not in a flashback later.
Yeah,
so we begin, so the stakes are high. So it's like, oh my God, we've begun straight away.
He's in hiding from, I recommend solid action film, as Ridley Scott did a good job. Love what you guys do and how much the pod has reinvigorated my love for films and cinema over the years. Thank you so much, Jasmine from Leeds. P.S. Please do a podcast tour or quiz up north. We've had a couple of north requests.
It's definitely something we want to do.
We'd love to do it.
Just time and money.
Great to do a north date.
We go
a
to
date
the north. Welcome. You do your quiz today. We'll journey up in carriages like we've come from King's Landing.
At Winterfell.
We'll get out and we'll go, where are we? And we'll be greeted by the pub landlord who'll say, you're here for the quiz. Come aboard. Eddard, pub landlord. This next email is from Patrick, who says, hello, James and George. First time emailer here from Wicklow, Ireland. Nice. I went to see Gladiator 2 or Gladiator in my local cinema, and I absolutely agree with everything you guys had to say. I felt very underwhelmed. Set pieces were great, No denying Ridley Scott is a master in that area. I agree with that. But much like Napoleon, it feels like a collection of individual scenes without consideration of how much the character's emotions and motivation should link the scenes together to form a compelling story. The biggest sticking point was how the main motivation of Paul's Lucius Hanno would change dramatically to make the current scene work. I feel if we were sold on Hanno's idealized version of Rome earlier, rooted in the worldview of Maximus and Marcus Aurelius, which we saw and heard as a boy, then the film would have been much more coherent. Instead, we were given a poorly delivered revenge plot that abruptly ended halfway through when a certain character is like, hey, you know, Rome's really bad, but before Rome's emperor's turning sorry, just dancing over some spoilers here. Basically just Lucius is poorly written as a character. It is a shame. There are a lot of very interesting ideas in the film, as you guys mentioned in your review. If really just focused on one or two of them and really fleshed them out, then the movie could have been elevated into something more. Anyway, I just want to sign off by saying I love the pod. Thank you for both your measured and fair approach to reviewing films. I look forward to it every week.
That's the thing. I felt underserved by the story as it was happening, and again at the end. It's not like it was serving me and then dropped off a cliff for a cliffhanger. It was, I was like, this feels thin and underexplored. And then in the first 20 minutes, I could tell we weren't concluding this, which was like a double sad there on the story.
Ready for a massive piece of conjecture from me? Just a massive, distance theory. I think the slight issue I'm having with Ridley Scott's work recently, again, obviously, I respect the fact he can corral massive set pieces. Like, there's no, I have no doubt in that, and I completely respect his skill there. But I wonder, when you look at the way Ridley Scott answers interviews and sort of engages with the topic, he is very, very confident. You could arguably say cocky, and putting his own film in his own top 4. Sure, great. But I wonder if he doesn't have. I'm just trying to think of other directors working in his age bracket. It's not even about age, actually. It's about the length of career. So take Scorsese and Spielberg, just an example. I feel like when you hear Scorsese and Spielberg talk about their most recent films, Scorsese about Killers of the Flower Moon, Spielberg about Fabelmans or West Side Story, there's a real curiosity there that they're still trying to discover something and still trying to learn something, and they love working with new actors to get something new. And there's something about the way that Ridley Scott talks about his work, and also the way that people talk about how he conducts himself on set in a kind of amusing way. I almost feel like I don't think there's a part of Ridley Scott that thinks he needs to learn anything else. I think he thinks he's got it all learned, and he's like, this is how it should be.
It's like he's a director for hire for his own film.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he's quite dismissive, and like it's almost sounds, I agree with you, it sounds quite transactional, his relationship with what he's doing. And like the way in which Paul Mescal was like, we were meant to shoot for 3 weeks, but he shot it in 9 days. Yeah. And we're saying, like, are you taking enough time to stew and think about everything is happening? Because if you look at the shot list, you've done it all. Yeah. But have you connected?
Have you, Ridley? Yeah.
We don't make films. We literally don't
Never
know.
made a film. No. Ridley Scott has made more than his fair share of very good films.
Made some really great films that I like a lot.
I'm just saying, from an audience member's perspective, just looking at the way directors with a really long filmography talk about it, I don't see the twinkle in his eye to go, oh yeah, we really wanted to explore this. It's like, I looked at that, I thought, I could do that in 9 days. Let's do that. Get the actors to do that. Didn't need to shoot that. There you go. Gladiator 2. There's $1 billion, hopefully.
Boom, done. Got another one coming out next year.
Yeah.
Last Gladiator 2 one from today. We do have many more, but we will get to them in the coming weeks. This one's from Nicholas, who says, hello, with a U, James and George.
Hello.
Just listen to Gladiator.
He's talking like Paul Mescal. Hello.
Hello.
This is about survival.
Sorry. This is about an email. Just listen to your Gladiator 2 episode, and I have a couple of random thoughts. Firstly, on a more serious note, did you notice a ton of homophobia in the film? There were plenty of characters who seemed to be gay, or at least gay adjacent. Not sure if that's the right phrasing. And it seemed to portray the character. It seemed to be portrayed as the character default. It was so noticeable that I was relieved when, spoilers, something, then of course he's something, I think.
I don't recall that. I don't...
Seeing what you've written, which I haven't read out, maybe, but I don't think I was thinking that when I was watching it. Anyways, speaking of handsome men, I was listening to your response to the email about men being overly or ridiculously muscled in films these days.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to point out that these things have always been cyclical. Yes, Keanu Reeves and even a young Russell Crowe 25 years ago were comparatively less buff than The Rock or Paul Mescal is today. And kudos to Russell Crowe when you watch The Insider and watch Gladiator, 2 films shot back to back, another 10 shot back to back, and with Crowe having a very different physical presence.
Wow.
That go back another 10 years and it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Jean-Claude Van Damme with their ridiculous muscles. That's a very good point.
Very good, yes. It's more, everything is a reaction to the previous generation.
And like them. Yeah, totally. Another 10 or 15 years and it was Steve McQueen and Burt Reynolds, etc., etc. You see what I mean? Lastly, I know you lads didn't touch on it at all, but although I did think the movie was a lot of fun, much like Twisters was, I was disappointed Gladiator 2 didn't dip into the frankly more interesting history of the real characters they portrayed instead of the kind of bland and repetitive plot lines. I'm just conscious that you are spoiling quite a lot here. Yes, you mentioned a lot of spoilers, but I will say I've heard a moment that is true that's in the film is the electing of the monkey as
isn't
a high
that based off of? Isn't that based? Well, I don't know if it happened twice, but isn't that based off of Caligula making his horse an emperor?
There's like a part of that electing out that's like rooted in fact. You've mentioned a lot of spoilers. Just give me one sec. I'm just not going to admit it because I think that spoils the film for people who haven't seen it. You go on to say. Anyway, you get the gist. The real history would seem so much more interesting than what Ridley Scott chose to invent. Such a pity. Anyhow, I've rambled on long enough now, and there's no chance you'll read this on air. But have a great day anyway, lads. Thanks for the fun pod, Nick. I've heard this film's been in the works for a very long time. At one point, Russell Crowe set to come back from the dead to be in it. Yeah, Russell Crowe was saying that. And it was like, so apparently this film has had so many writers jump in to contribute to the script that has meant that any story direction you now go down involves writing credits from anyone who's contributed to that idea, which makes trying to scrap it and start again very difficult because if you're drawing on the idea that one of 8 writers did in the noughties, you've technically now borrowed from that, and that now is in conflict. And then trying to change something after the fact changes politically who's written it. That's from what I've heard. I've explained that very badly, but like lots of things.
Because this has technically got one writer, David Scarpa.
But
I believe that I believe there are more scribes underneath.
There's been lots of versions of it which have been thrown out. Yes.
To have one single scribe credited.
Yes, there's going to be. I think they wanted to have this come out in 2009, which would have been more relevant given only 9 years from the original. But yeah, that maybe indicates the messiness of the story and sort of drawing on lots of elements but not completing them.
It is nice to hear that it's worked for some people and some people have had a good enough time. That's great. I always love a film to find its audience. I remain disappointed and actually I don't know if this is just because I went away on a holiday, but I didn't think about it much at all.
No, it's come and gone for me.
Don't think I'll ever rewatch that.
As always, guys, you can hear our Gladiator 2 review from a couple of weeks ago if you didn't catch it. But those are all the emails we're going to read out today. We do have a few more. We've actually got plenty of emails because we've not answered them for 2 weeks. But as always, send in your thoughts. Tell it at pulpkitchenpodcast.com. Or support us at the VIP tier on Patreon and have priority access to have your email read out on the show. Let's end the podcast with a game.
Yes.
George, as always, Pulp Kitchen ends
with a game,
but sometimes with a little thought exercise. Guys, we are full game mode for the quiz, which are happening both this week and next week. So we are all gamed out. But instead, I saw an interesting little Instagram post about films and the future. Okay. So, we live, as of recording, in 2024, almost 2025.
Yes.
And there have been films that were made in the past that have set their films in the future. But there are many films whose futures have now come and gone. I wanted to run you through some of those.
Right.
And then run you through the future films that you are going to live through.
Right.
And the future fills that you will unlikely never see.
Okay, here we go.
So, for example, we've got Clockwork Orange, which was set in 1995.
Right,
which we were 1 year old for.
Yeah.
You've got Escape to New York, 97.
Yeah.
2001, obviously set.
2001.
Very different future.
Yes.
To we saw there. You've got RoboCop set in 2015.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
And they remade RoboCop in 2015.
I don't know what they set the remake future for. Like, did they put that future forward?
That would have been said like 2045, maybe.
You got Back to the Future 2, famously, 2015.
2015, yes, that's right.
85. Back to the Future 2, sorry. Did I say 2?
Yeah.
You got The Running Man 2017.
Terrible movie. Looking forward to the remake.
Blade Runner 2019. That was a big one.
Yes.
Really dystopian future there.
I love that. Yeah, I remember because it's like February 2019. There's a specific date in it.
Yes.
And everyone was like, nah, not
and
quite.
the future is a little bit different.
I mean, they were cutting it fine when in 1982 they thought in 35 years we would have like a pyramid
mega
conglomerate.
towers,
and you wouldn't even get the permits done in that time.
It would just be building constantly.
Oh.
The construction headache would just be terrible.
Anyway,
so Blade Runner. You got Children and Men 2027, which is coming in hot.
That I would actually say, I know you haven't seen it, but of the future, this is what makes Children and Men so brilliant, is that the future that it realizes is very close. I totally believe that is
possible.
I mean, there's a couple of tech things you think maybe not, but there is still touch technology in it, which is relevant. It's also the dreariness and the poverty, the climate crisis, and the attitude to refugees and immigrants is so startling. It's a great movie.
I was looking at clips of 2001 for reasons, and I love seeing the representation of futuristic tech from what was in the 1960s and how it refers to 2001 or what it would have been in the 21st century. And obviously see like there are so many similarities to the technology in that you see in Star Wars. Like, you know, when Luke is flying through the trench of the Death Star and it's the beep, you see the trenches represented digitally. Yeah. We take that for granted, but that was like radar made in 3D. Yeah. Because that's what they had. Whereas, like,
we see it as retro now.
We see it as retro, or like we would just represent it digitally, but they basically put radar on its end and had it go through. And you can see that they representing 3D space with a grid and how you move through. And
but also what I love is that then what makes subsequent Star Wars projects great is when they kept that sort of retro tech.
Yes,
still a bit like Alien Romulus did as well, which keeping the 70s.
But still feels futuristic. Even the newer ones, you still feel that
of the
digital
future.
Click. Yes, totally.
Keyboard still. Yeah. Mission not complete.
Great sounds. You got V for Vendetta, which I've not seen, for 2038.
You not seen
No.
Sorry, you've not seen
V for
Vendetta. I've seen that once. Yeah, it's not a bad film. It's all set in London, which is the thing. And
how's the
Stephen
future
Fry's
in
in that. So where's it set?
2038.
Oh, it's not. I don't remember it being overly futuristic. I think it's definitely plausible.
Yeah. You got Event Horizon for 2047.
I mean, that still relies on interstellar space travel. That movie, by the way, I'd love to see remade properly.
Yes.
Because
did you see that before?
I think so. Yeah. Because it's basically a haunted house in space.
Nice.
And originally there was a lot more disturbing stuff in it that they cut out, but basically it's about what happened to the existing crew. And in the I think it's Paul W.S. Anderson made the movie. There's like 5 to 10 minutes or brief cuts of like orgies and horrific destruction and hell, which I'm like, we would love to have a bit more of that, a bit more nastiness. It's just sort of hinted at in the movie. You're like, I would wish that was more of the film. Anyway,
so we got a set of Event Horizon, the one which prompted this game. For a news story I saw this week. So in Minority Report, that is set in 2054, and which is a future that we should hopefully see happen. And that is interesting because obviously that's about using artificial intelligence to prevent crimes being committed before they are. And there was a case that happened this week where a man, they used AI in CCTV. They knew the registration plate of someone who had committed a crime, and they cross-referenced the registration plate to a man and arrested the man with the assumption that because of that technology, he must have committed the crime and he was wrongly arrested. And there is a thing now about, I think it's because China is big on surveillance, right? Not to get political, but you know, they're really big and they scan people's faces. There is a technology which I think they're trying to write out of being implemented in AI, which is very simple. It's like, given our records and given this location, and for example, let's say this part of the city at this time of night, at this time of year, with this many people occupying this space, there's actually a 78% chance there's more likely to be crime committed in this area right now. So therefore, we should send police. You know, like on Halloween, there's more crime. So therefore, we'll send police preemptively to go and potentially stop crime. But is it a problem if you're like sending people there with the intention to make an arrest, even if there hasn't been one happened yet? We just know about the probability.
I mean, that particular example doesn't sound
too bad,
too ominous. That sounds like data driven. It's just like we've got data that suggests that areas. I don't see I don't see that as anything to do with like facial recognition or an infringement.
No, but how far do you take it? When you're like, we actually have a really good idea that a Kamara is about to be committed.
Well, I remember a friend telling me about, what's that game called? It was called something Dogs. It was like set in the future. Like some
Sleeping Dogs.
No. Oh, I can't remember it. Not War Dogs or something like that. But he told me an example where like the guy goes to take out a loan and they say it's already been denied because in the time that you've in coming here, we've already seen your journey and we can see you're really not risk averse. You're really like a risk-taking person. So it's too much liability with you. So we're not going to grant you some insurance. We're not going to grant you a loan. That's quite scary.
Will be interesting to see the Minority Report Future 2054. Another one.
I'd like to rewatch Minority Report. I remember really loving it when I was a kid.
Yeah, I think that'd be fun. Another one we could see in 2084 is Total Recall.
Never seen it. Either of them.
No. Oh no, I've seen the Colin Firth one.
Oh right.
Firth. No, Farrell.
It's my Total Recall.
Please,
if you don't mind, it's terribly.
Bit on the edge for us, George, with AI at 2101.
Oh, as an artificial intelligence, 2101. Who knows, James?
Who's still here? Maybe by that point, things were sort of being kept alive.
What did you think of Gladiator 6?
Ridley Scott's still going. If we're alive,
he's
we're
just
still
a
going.
floating head in a jar by this point.
And then what will be fun for people in 2122 is Alien is set in 2122. Yeah. The original Alien.
Wow.
That will be.
I don't have anything to say about that, but do you know what I do think is quite... I think what's going to happen, or what could happen, which is quite worrying, is that cut 300 years in the future and space travel is normalized and a thing. We have space colonies and maybe we have interstellar travel and all that stuff, right? Maybe. In the history books, because history is written by the victor, sadly, it'll be like, well, yeah, and it was fantastic. The reason that mankind was able to leave Earth and find new horizons was because of a man called Elon Musk. And he worked with the heroic President Donald Trump to actually... push for space travel, and lots of people have come out. There are rumors that like they were quite bad men, but no, we don't listen to that because the truth is that they got a space travel.
They saved us.
And I'm like, oh my god, we're living in the past right now, and I can see how the future is going to be written by these people.
In Wall-E, there were like the videos of the people from the past and like the old entrepreneurs. Like it'll be Musk jumping around at Trump's thing with the
Dark Maga.
Moving on to, let's go for The Matrix. Will be long dead in 2199. Oh god! When the machines have taken over.
That was set 200 years after the movie was made.
Yeah. They got time to sort of progress things there.
Machines.
It's not like when we talk about Minority Report will be a stretch. Like who knows? The future's open at that point.
I said to someone, I was like, with the advance of AI, it'd be really good if they could like solve all our problems, like climate change. And they were like, well, they can solve climate change for us. They would just kill all the humans.
Yes. That's what they're frantically writing into the programming to make sure that we are not the problem. You then got The Fifth Element coming in at 2263. Wow. Long dead. Zardov at 2293. Star Trek. I had no idea what year Star Trek was set at 2387.
Goodness.
I mean, if you want to be that specific, sure.
I mean, it's just the future, isn't it?
Long into the future, you've got Barbarella, Planet of the Apes, and Dune.
Yeah, Dune is 10,000 years in the future.
I think that's at the end of this
That's
list.
why I actually appreciated it was so far in the way.
It's like, okay, don't even worry about it.
I would say that when you say Star Trek, specifically, never seen the Patrick Stewart ones, but the Patrick Stewart original era of Star Trek just feels like a bar lounge. You know what I'm saying? It's got that kind of like cocktail vibe.
It does feel very trendy cocktail vibe.
Even though it's meant to be like the deck or the bridge. The bridge of the Enterprise.
You'd love a Negroni over there.
I'm just like, I can hear it now.
Good place to lean. Yeah.
Like, sit there.
And his chair's quite
suit.
Like cocktail bar.
Yeah. All right.
Too bright, so they need to bring the lighting down a bit.
Yeah, they need to have more
Do you think maybe when they all clock off, they just float through space and the disco ball comes down? Yeah. Like a sad Christmas party. They're just all there. But yeah, just interesting to see what futures we have lived, what futures we might live, and what futures we definitely won't. Little thought piece for you there, a thought provoker.
No one knows what the future holds. It's bad enough just getting old. So anyway.
What we do know is that we'll be covering many films as we come to the end of the year.
What we do in life echoes in eternity.
Oh, beautiful. Did you write that?
No. I will say that Gladiator 2 has, maybe only for the short term, but has spoiled Now We Are Free. The Gladiator song. It's kind of, if I hear now, I go, they really crowbarred that one in. Also, something I don't see a lot of stuff written about online. This is a niche one, but Sirens out there if you're interested. the song from Gladiator, Now We Are Free, the Hans Zimmer, Lisa Gerrard one, iconic, the theme. With I think is it whoever's doing the vocals, is it Lisa Gerrard there? Yeah. Sure. Sounds exactly like a track released about 15 years earlier called Song to the Siren by This Mortal Coil.
Literal Sirens.
And if you play the track, you'll go, this sounds a bit like Gladiator.
Yeah.
And so now my song to you, Sirens, is to go and listen to this Mortal Coil's song called Song to the Siren. And you'll go, bloody hell, that sounds a bit like Gladiator.
The Hans Zimmer scores for Inception and 12 Years a Slave are very similar.
And Gladiator and Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes, and Gladiator and Pirates.
If it ain't broke, he got the last laugh there.
Just tweak a couple of chords.
Thank you very much for getting to the end of this episode of Pulp Kitchen. We very much enjoyed doing this. Glad to be back in the seat. And well, stay tuned for next week where we can hopefully talk about Nosferatu and many other films. Don't forget to check out Double Take, which has got lots of exciting things in. Continue to follow and support us on Instagram and social media and see where if you follow us on social media, you'll see all the selfies with all the celebrities, Willem Dafoe aside and everyone, and updates on the quiz.
Premieres.
And big thanks to our producers as ever, Aidan, Finn and Dave. James, have I missed anything?
I think that's it.
I think that's it, guys. We made it to the end of this episode and soon to the end of the year. We'll be back next week.
With more.
Over to you.
Over to you.
Bye, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.